Hey friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel. Huck is in the room, the executive producer. Some of you have stated that at the beginning of the year she was demanding a raise. We have a tight budget here at the studio, but we decided to give her an extra quarter cup of kibble just because she's been doing so well. You can see the response from that big pay raise. Anyhow, back to the show. Yes, this is 2024. Yes, this is 2024. You know, whoever thought we'd make it this far, right? But for the good grace of you and the people out there, I'm humbled that anybody watches. I'm serious. People have told me, Dave, anybody watch you? I don't think so. But I know from your responses somebody does. And the good thing is, so far this year we have solved the comment question. Everyone can comment again. And hopefully we'll figure out the unsubscribed portion of the show, where thousands of you have told me you've been unsubscribed dozens of times. Yes. It's unreal. And I'll show you. I got this new shirt for Christmas. Freedom, U.S. flag, Under Armour. Yeah, I like it. It's Dave. It's me. So we ran hard with truckers. Now we're doing Amnesia. And you're going to see how this all comes together, folks. I'm not making stuff up. I couldn't make this up if I had the weirdest imagination possible. We've got some really weird stories for you today. 2, amnesia related, that fall right in line with Missing 411. This is another huge spoke in the wheel. As many of you acknowledged, in the Truckers series, the truckers that disappeared were alone. And as I've stated in the Missing 411 books, that it seems as though that once you become alone, you become susceptible to going missing, being taken. And that point of separation, something happens. It's as though something, someone, somewhere is watching. And let me pick it up right there with our first story. The man's name was Wayne Leatherman, 39 years old, went missing August 2nd, 1958. It's a California case. He was working as a farm worker in the San Joaquin Valley of Fresno County. He was married, had a son 9 and 4, and a daughter that was newly born. She was only 1. And he took his family from Oklahoma to a place called Farmsville in the valley 4 years earlier, in 1954. His wife's name was Ida. He lived a good life. He had a decent income. He couldn't save a lot of money, but he still was able to keep his family afloat. On August 2nd, he went hunting, deer hunting, with a good buddy of his named Elmer Duncan. And they were hunting in the western part of Fresno County. So in Missing 411, The Hunters, my Hunter's book, there are a lot of hunters missing in Fresno County. And as I've written more books, more hunters from Fresno County have come up missing under very, very, underline, very odd conditions. Well, here we have another one. On August 2nd, the two men established their camp, a hunting camp, in a place called Spanish Lake, kind of west of a small town called Coalinga. And if you are a regular driving up and down Highway 5 from the Bay Area to Los Angeles, you know when Kalinga's coming miles away, because it is an area with thousands of acres of cows that are in pens, and it's the most horrific smell. You can't miss it. Honestly, you can't miss it. You know when it's coming. So Wayne left his hunting camp late in the day, and Elmer said he was going to stay behind. So Wayne left alone. Point of separation. Now, his wife told people that he had hunted his whole life. He was in good shape. He didn't have any medical issues, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you that Huck must find this interesting because she's hanging in there. This is Wayne. Healthy, hard worker, worked in the fields every day. Took a day off. Actually took a couple days off to go hunting with his buddy. So Wayne doesn't come back. This is kind of a tough thing for partners, friends to acknowledge. When somebody goes missing, do you wait? Do you call the sheriff right away? You know, is he out in the field with his deer dressing it out and he'll be back in the morning? You don't know. And I'm not going to judge people on this the vast majority of the time, and I don't blame Elmer for what he did, is waiting till morning. He waited till morning and Wayne didn't come back. So on August 3rd, Elmer reported Wayne missing to the Fresno County Sheriff. So where is this? I'll tell you where. So Spanish Lake, where they were hunting, is right here. Right here. This is Interstate 5, the north-south linkage through the San Joaquin Valley. Los Angeles is way down here, and San Francisco would be up on the coast, up in this area. So, Spanish Lake. Fresno is over in this area. There's a city called King City right here, and this is Kalinga right here. Kalinga right here, King City right here. Oh, I hear you, Huck. So, the next day after he's reported missing, the sheriff's department gets 12 deputies together on horseback and on foot. And they start searching. And they search from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's a good long search. They don't find anything. The next day, August 5th, they get canines from Modesto that are super highly trained. And they get a Coast Guard helicopter to fly the area in search of Wayne. Well, the dogs end up going at it all day and track 18 to 20 miles towards Kalinga, where they lose the scent just before getting into the city. And they tell the deputies. Okay. Well, also this same day, Wayne's photo went up in the local newspaper. Keep that in the back of your mind. Late in the day on August 5th, something very strange happens. The Coast Guard helicopter crashes. And it crashes right near where the camp is located, Spanish Lake. It's a picture of the Coast Guard crash. Why do I tell you this? If you are a follower of my books, you know I actually have a chapter about aircraft crashes in conjunction with searches of people I write about. It is very strange. It was later stated that strong winds put the helicopter down. Remember, these are professional Coast Guard pilots. They've flown thousands of hours. Very odd that it crashed on this incident. Now, the same day that Wayne's photo went up in the local paper, a clerk at the railroad station in Kalinga happens to see Wayne's photo. And on August 5th, she calls the sheriff and says, "Hey, somebody looking just like this man came into the railroad station yesterday and bought a ticket, one-way ticket to King City." And I actually talked to him in the station for a while. So she identifies the picture in the paper as the person who bought the ticket. So what does the sheriff do? At the end of the day, on August 5th, he cancels the search for Wayne and says Wayne took the train out of the area going to King City. Now, do I believe that? I've told you before that many, many times people say and do things that really don't match reality. So let me put it to you this way. This is Coalinga. This is where Wayne's hunting camp was at. The dogs took a scent, and they said the scent went towards Coalinga, where the cows are, remember? Now, King City is way over here, way west of Coalinga. So keep that in mind, all right? Huck, you want to go out? No bark now. All right? People say thank you for stopping by. Did a great job. Now, what happens next is a head scratcher. August 6th, the very next day after the sheriff cancels the search, Wayne wanders into a farm near a city called Fowler, about 20 miles directly the opposite way of King City. Now, here's King City, here's the camp, here's Coalinga. Dogs track to Coalinga. Fowler is way over here. Now, back in 1958, none of these big roads existed, so Wayne could easily make this across. There was no I-5, so he could have walked through fields all the way into this farmer's ranch in Fowler, right over here. And it would have been about a 30-mile hike for Wayne to get there. Well, Wayne goes and knocks on this farmer's house at 6 a.m. on August 6th. And he asks the farmer, he goes, "Do you know me?" How many times have we heard this from people? Farmer goes, "No, sir, I don't." And he goes, "Can you help me? I don't know where I am." Farmer says, "Sure." He calls the sheriff. Wayne was still carrying his rifle. A sheriff's deputy arrives at about an hour later. Interviews Wayne, and Wayne says, "Do you know who I am?" Deputy says, "No, sir." But the deputy called in and says, "Hey, I have a man that has amnesia. Here's the description." And the sheriff says, "Yeah, that is Wayne Leatherman probably. Was he wearing this? Yep. Okay, so they identified him. It was Wayne. And the Fresno County Sheriff interviewed him, tried to understand where he had been, what he had done. He didn't have any answers. He was severely dehydrated, had blistered lips, and was sunburned very bad. And he was taken by the deputy to Fresno General Hospital, and his wife was called. Now, Wayne had been gone for 4 days. Nobody had seen him. Helicopters hadn't tracked him. Dogs hadn't tracked him. Dogs went completely a different way. There'd been a helicopter crash. Well, on August 8th, the sheriff was asked by some reporters how Wayne was doing. And the sheriff stated he was still incoherent. He was still being hospitalized, and only family could visit him. August 9th, a report from the sheriff was Wayne was improving slowly, only family can see him. 3 days later, he was released from the hospital, and the wife talked to the media and was guarding her husband, but allowed him to talk. Wayne stated that when he left his hunting camp on August 2nd, late in the afternoon, immediately after camp, he just blacked out. He doesn't remember anything. Remember, point of separation. He walks away from camp, and Elmer, boom, something happened. Friends, it's like putting all the pieces together. This is starting to make sense. Now, years earlier, Wayne was hunting with his stepfather and also disappeared for a short period of time, and also had a very similar incident with amnesia reported by his stepfather. And that time it happened in Texas. Now, just because I am a mile wide and an inch deep, I know about abductees of UFOs. And they claim that over the course of their lifetime, they are usually abducted many times. And they can't stop it, and they can't remember. Now, Fresno County, as I stated earlier, probably has more hunters missing than any other county in the U.S. I don't know why. And some of the areas are truly bizarre. Many of the people are never found. So my question to you, is amnesia a side effect of being lost and then being returned? Now, Wayne had been a U.S. Army vet. I'm really befuddled by this entire amnesia thing. The physicians that interviewed Wayne believed he had amnesia, believed he had something very strange happen to him. And nobody thought he was a liar. So how did he get 30 miles away? Why didn't anyone find him? Why didn't the canines find him? Why did he lose his memory? Only other time that ever happened was when he was alone again hunting. We're talking about truckers alone, hunters alone. Next case involves a man named Edward Sandman, 35 years old, missing September 20th, 1956, about 23 months before Wayne. Edward lived in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. The first time ever we've had a missing person case from Rhode Island. I think that probably covers all the 50 states now, but we're waiting on this one. He was married to a woman named Rosalind, and he was a salesman. A successful salesman, I might add. Now, on September 20th, he told his wife that he was going to go striped bass fishing at a place called Brenton Point. He did this regularly. It was nothing unusual. He had an appointment at 9 p.m. that night. Wife reminded him that he had the appointment, and he took an extra set of fishing clothes to change into. Well, he took all of his fishing gear, drove his car, and he said that he'd be back after the appointment. Well, at about midnight, Mrs. Sandman started to get worried. Her husband wasn't back. She called the people that he was supposed to have a meeting with at 9 o'clock. He didn't make that meeting. She immediately called the Newport police. Police responded, and thankfully, they actually took a missing persons report, which is unusual back then because sometimes they made you wait 2 or 3 business days. Well, they took the report and then they sent officers down to Brenton Point where they knew that he had gone fishing. The officers immediately found Edward's car parked on Ocean Road, right adjacent to where he was going to go fishing. And they went down to the ocean with their flashlights, and they found his coat laying on the rocks. And they also found one tennis shoe in the tide pools right there, later ID'd to be his coat and his shoes. Well, they turned their cars around and put their headlights of their cars on the seashore. They looked up and down and found nothing. And at that point, they called for a search and rescue the next morning, September 21st. I can tell you that I'm sure Rosalind was out of her mind worried at this point. When you start finding shoes in the water and clothes next to the water and somebody's not there, it points to somebody being in the water, and that's exactly where the police went with this. They immediately called the Coast Guard that night and asked for one to be up at dawn the next morning, flying the coast looking for a body or something along the beach. And they did. They had other officers in boats along the water, searching, scanning, pulling. Now, much further down the beach from the location where they found the coat, they recovered more clothing. And they never said what this was, but Rosalind later said that they did recover his clothing. Police were convinced at this point that he was in the water, and also because they didn't find any fishing gear. And you think, well, why is that, Dave? Well, usually a fisherman may be standing amongst the rocks, and you like to have your gear right next to you so you could change your lure, put on some more bait, blah, blah, blah. Big wave comes in, washes everything away. Fishing pole, tackle box, everything. They didn't find anything. September 22nd. Coast Guard was still up in the air and in the water searching. The shoreline was being searched. They weren't finding anything. September 23rd, Rosalind states that in her heart, she knew that Edward wasn't dead. She couldn't explain it, but she goes, I know he's not dead, with conviction. Fourth day of an all-out search for Edward Sandman. Nothing's being found. They found everything there was to be found. They talked to his wife about if him going striped bass fishing was unusual. She said no, he loved doing it. He went there a lot. And remember, they found his car there. So he had no transportation. So where could he go? Now hold on to your seats. October 1st, 1956. Two Phoenix, Arizona policemen are walking through a downtown area. They're downtown. And they see a man up ahead that's looking all around, doesn't seem to be paying attention where he's going, seems to be in a dazed condition. And they walk up on him and they ask him, are you okay? And he says, where am I? And they said, what? Where am I? They said, you're in Phoenix. Phoenix what? Phoenix, Arizona. And the person goes, oh, come on. So what was the response? Oh, come on. No, you're in Phoenix, Arizona. Who are you? He goes, I don't know. Well, they take him to the station. And these type of cases are very unusual in police work. I never found anybody that had this. Well, their captain, took an interest in this. And he came down and he interviewed Edward and was 1,000% under the belief Edward was telling the truth. And he heard about a doctor in Phoenix that had taken care of people like this before, and he had some type of interesting treatment that could sometimes get the people to break away and open up and wake up to who they are. So the captain took him to this place, to the physician's office, and the doctor said, yeah, I'll see him right away. So the doctor said he sat with him for several hours, and make a long story short, a day and a half later, the doctor calls and says, hey, we know who he is. He's Edward Sandman. Mrs. Sandman was called, and she flew to Phoenix Airport the very next day to meet with her husband. This is a picture when they met. The Phoenix press was all over this and found it highly fascinating because the police had put so much emphasis that Edward Red really had no memory. Well, let's think about this for a second. The distance between Rhode Island out here and Phoenix over here, by car is 2,600 miles. If you straighten that out, it's a little less, but it's well over 2,000 miles. That's quite a distance, folks. For a man who has no memory, how he got there, who he was, or what he was doing. So Rosalind and him sat down at the airport, and Edward made this statement to the press. Quote, "I'll never forget this, even if I live to be 100 years old. I remember going fishing, taking off my nice clothes, and putting on my fishing clothes. And that's all I remember." Whew. Wow. So where was Edward for 10 days? How did he get from Rhode Island to Arizona? Think about that. The doctor said he didn't think Edward had eaten for 4 or 5 days. So he has definite loss of memory. And where was he? Oh yeah, he was next to water when he disappeared. And for you people who have my books, including Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, wrote a story about a young man who went cross-country skiing in Michigan. And search and rescue went to look for him, and they found his tracks going out over the lake, the Great Lake, and stopping and not returning. And they thought that he fell through the ice. Quite a time later, a long time later, he ends up, quote, waking up on the east coast of the U.S. on a lawn not far from where his parents lived. And I wrote that story several years ago. It is a 411 story. Just like I believe this is a 411 story. Because in the books I've written, the people that are found rarely have a memory. So does that mean that all of them have gone through what I've been discussing for the last month and a half? It's a very troubling prognosis. And I'm not an idiot, but if everything starts to point in one direction, and you refuse to look in that direction, then you are not a good investigator. You can push as hard as you can to turn away, to not see the obvious. But if you don't pursue it, then how good are you as an investigator? I know many of you push and say, oh, it's got to be a cryptid, it's got to be Dogman, it's got to be Bigfoot. You need to open your eyes a little bit. There's a lot more in life than that. And until you start doing as hard and as much research on other topics as you do on Dogman and Bigfoot, you're just going to be looking down that same tunnel the whole rest of your life. I'm willing to look in other places. I'm willing to keep an open mind. And just like when I've done on a previous episode of the Trucker series, where I told you how many UFO sightings there are around Iowa. Let me tell you about Fresno County. Fresno County has a lot of UFO sightings as well. I may talk to you about that someday. But for this, I hope you can see the connection to the truckers. And we will explore this more in the future. Thank you very much for being here. You can buy my books. I'll sign a movie poster at NA, like North America, NABigfootsearch.com. Then go to the online store. You can follow me on social media at Twitter, David Paulides at CanAm Missing Project, Paulides at CanAm Missing. And I hope you share this with your friends. And I hope that this year brings you happiness and lots of love. I got a lot of love this morning from Hawk. She came up and gave me a big lick. And in the meantime, be friendly to your neighbors. Do something kind for people. Thank you. Paulides out.